Hi there, it's day 5 of week 7 of 52 weeks of vlogging. It's Friday, so it's time for another book review. This time I'm going to talk about the first 2 books in a series, Divergent and its sequel, Insurgent, both by Veronica Roth. Okay, I'm probably late to this party. Most of you have probably read them already, but if you haven't, definitely pick them up. They're best-selling books, and it's not because of marketing, it's because they're fantastic. Divergent is about a girl named Beatrice Pryor, and it takes place in a dystopian future in which the government has basically broken down, and so the city, in order to maintain peace and order, has been split into areas representing different factions. And each faction embodies a certain quality. For example, erudite is a faction that embodies wisdom and learning, and so that's the faction that produces most of the teachers, scientists, researchers, and lawmakers. Dauntless is another faction, and as you can tell from the name, their whole thing is bravery. So soldiers come from the Dauntless faction, and they seek to foster bravery and courage in their members, mostly by encouraging fights and exposing them to violence at a young age. And Beatrice comes from a faction called Abnegation. They embody selflessness and live a life of self-sacrifice. And there are a few other factions too. Amity represents peace and Candor represents honesty. And when teenagers turn 16, they're given a decision. They have to choose the faction in which they'll live for the rest of their life. So Beatrice makes a really surprising choice, which I won't give away to avoid spoilers, renames herself Tris, and then starts to learn the ins and outs of how their society and their government really work. Now, mixed in with all this, Tris has a potentially deadly secret, and of course, because this is a book for teenagers, a budding romance with an intriguing young man who calls himself Four. And while all that may sound melodramatic and ridiculous, it isn't. This is a book in which the world is painted beautifully and honestly and truly, and which offers us a world which, while being a huge departure from where we are right now, isn't such a far departure that it's unbelievable or feels like too much of a stretch. The 5 factions are really just categorizations that we already put ourselves into, taken to the extreme. You can look at it as cliques that people group themselves into when they're in high school. You can look at it as something that parallels political affiliations. Republicans always support these causes and Democrats always support those causes. And at a much more fundamental level, it mirrors the kind of decisions that we all have to make when we start to grow up and move away from our parents' homes. Are we going to be the person that they raised us to be, or are we actually turning out to be someone else? And can we reconcile the differences between those two things and find peace within ourselves and within our family? Divergent offers us a really interesting and valuable opportunity to re-examine the framework within which our society is built through the lens of a thrilling novel. Trish is that rare main character who is both strong and vulnerable, and she's also really smart, and that's one of the things that I like the most about this book. I'm gonna be upfront and say I wasn't a fan of the ending of Divergent. Trish did a couple things that kind of made me go, what? But I still wanted to know how the next book was gonna go. So I picked up Insurgent as soon as it came out and devoured it in pretty much a day. I actually thought this was a better book than the first one, partly because of the way it develops the characters as we go through. We learn a lot more about Four's backstory and his family, and I thought that was fantastic. And if this ever gets turned into a movie, dibs on playing Four's mom. She is badass. But mostly, I really loved the way this book ended. I thought it ended in a way that was true to all the characters involved, and I'm dying to see what happens in the next book. Obviously, the 3rd book in the series isn't out yet. You can pre-order it on Amazon. They're calling it Divergent 3. I mean, Divergent 3? Come on, HarperCollins. Is that really the best you can do? I eagerly await the ending to this series. It's fantastic. If you haven't picked it up yet, make sure you do. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.